If one buys
I
tevel
guess.
from two places, he may tithe from one for the other, although they said one may not sell tevel except in the case of necessity. And one may give tithe from a Jew's for that of a non-Jew's, from a non-Jew's for that of a Jew, from a Jew's for that of a Kuthian, from a Kuthian for that of a Kuthians. Reb Eliezer forbids from a Kuthians for that of Kuthians. And a perforated pot is as the earth. If he gave truma from the earth for a perforated pot, from a perforated pot for the earth, his truma is truma. From a non-perforated pot for a perforated pot, one it is truma. But he must give truma again. From a perforated one for a non-perforated one, it is truma, but may not be eaten until he separates truma and maestras for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think the easiest way to in this, as in I gave a similar technique in Yevamos of how to work out what the halach is going to be, is by wearing two sets of glasses. One set of glasses views things on a Durabanan level, and one on a Duraisa level. So when you're viewing things with on your Durabanan level, you see that taking truma from something that is Duraisa chayev for something that's Durabanan chayev, everything on the Durabanan level should all work,
Mm-hmm.
right? So therefore, it's valid truma. However, when you take those off and put in your Duraisa glasses, and there's no such thing as a Durabanan, and you just see you tried to take truma from something that's Duraisa chayev on something that doesn't need to be maased. So therefore, your truma is not is still tevel,
Right.
and
Right.
therefore if he gives it to the kohen, now the kohen has to go and take truma on it again. And in the reverse position, when you're trying to take something from something that's durabanan chayav on something that's daraisa chayav from a durabanan level, yeah, okay, that looks good. It looks like truma, so therefore it really does become truma. On the other hand, you look back on the daraisa level and you did nothing because you took
Right.
from something that was pater and something that was chayav. So therefore, he has to retake truma from the part that's daraisa chayav. Okay, so now take a look at Yud Aleph, a slightly different sort of situation. Tara min ha-demai al ha-demai. You've got demai from one person and demai from another person, and now he takes truma from one onto the other.
Okay.
Um, Now there's a problem over here. We're now in a suffix situation. Previously we were in a vadai. We knew that the one was chayiv derabanan and one was chayiv deraisa. Okay, now this is a case where the whole din is a suffix. We don't know. It might be tevel. It might be mitukan, but we just don't know. So it's possible that we're taking from something that's chayiv on something that's patur, and it's possible that we're taking from something that's patur on chayiv. Okay, so because you don't know which is the demai, what's the status of this demai? Mi demai ala vadai. If he takes from demai in order to pater vadai, truma, it's still truma, but v'yachzor v'yisrom. So on the derabanan level, yes, definitely it's truma, and he has to give it to the kohen. But look at the piece that you were trying to be metaken. You're still in a level of safek, so you need to take truma from it itself, from within itself, in order to be 100% sure that you've done the right thing. Mina vadai ala demai. So now, if he takes truma from something that's vadai tevel on something that's demai, that's possibly tevel. He doesn't know for sure. Okay. Again, truma v'lo te'achel ad sheyotzia alea truma sumasras. There's still a possibility that he's taking from from tevel on something that's mitukan, and therefore the truma portion itself, the coin is not going to eat until he's separated out trumas and masters from that portion again. Okay. Perik Vav. Hamikabel Sadem Yisrael. Okay, so here is a situation where you've got sharecroppers. So remember, there are two types of workers on the field who are taking a portion. There's the sharecropper, who's called makabel in the lashon of our Mishna. So he's makabel the field from and he's going to pay a percentage. So that's why it's called a sharecropper, because he has a certain percentage. It's typically negotiated between a quarter and a half of the produce goes to the owner of the field. Okay, and then there's the chocher. The chocher is a renter. He pays a flat fee for the rental of the field, and the chocher would typically pay his rental from the crop of the field itself. They would say, okay, you've got to pay 50 sa'ah of crops for the use of this field, irrespective of whether its harvest is big or small.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, um, and that's a that's a fixed price arrangement as opposed to the percentage arrangement. But he didn't necessarily have to pay from the crops of that field. It's possible that he would be asked to pay in cash, or he'd be asked to pay with a different type of crop, which effectively has become cash. So now, with those distinctions in mind, let's go into our Mishnah.
Wait, so
Makabel
the makabel is the sharecropper.
is a sharecropper, right?
Yeah.
So he's paying a percentage of the crops. A percentage of the crops are going to belong to the owner of the field.
Okay.
Okay. So makabel sadeh Israel. So now, if the owner of the field is a Jew, okay, or if mina nochri or mina kusi, or if the owner is a nochri or if the owner is a kusi, it doesn't matter. He's taking a share from the crops. Yichalek lifneihem. So what can he do? He doesn't. Since the crop is already owned by percentages, he can separate out the percentage that's due to the owner of the field off the crop, and he doesn't have to take any responsibility for trumas or masros.
To the one, right? Because
Right.
the
Because they own percentages. So he says, fine, 25%, 50% of the crop is yours. Here's your portion. You do with it what you want. Okay, and even if the owner is an Amaretz, he has no responsibility for separating Trumas and Mastros, because the ownership has already taken effect, and he just takes out his portion and says, this is mine, and I take my portion. Okay. However, now if somebody rents a field from Israel, now things start getting a little bit more complicated in terms of Trumas and Mastros, because the owner of the field has a flat amount, not a percentage. Okay, so now he has to take, if he's taking out from his own crop to give him, then he must first take truma. Now, Torem v'nosen and we're going to be medayik. He only takes truma. He doesn't have to take maser sheni, maser rishon, maser trumas maser, and all those other things. He does, however, have to take truma. Okay, before giving over the crops to the owner. Okay, why is that? Because he's already stacked the grain, and now he's not allowed to leave it as truma. Because hang on, so the difference is yeah, he's not allowed to delay from separating truma, because he has a debt basically to the owner of the field.
Once he stacks it, that's
Okay.
it. He has to take truma right away, so to speak. Once
Yeah, that's correct. So he has to
bring it into the house. It's the same thing. If you pile it up.
Okay.
This is in the field. The produce that he has is in the field. It's stacked up in the field. Am I correct, or
wherever it is, whatever we saw in possible to have the mirachakri in the field, or it's possible to have it in the granary.
Okay.
Okay. Now let's just make a clarification of Rabbi Yehuda. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Emasai. Now, when is this so? That's when he's paying him from that field's crop. Okay, from that very field's crop, he's allowed to only take truma. Or if he's giving him from something from another field, or from a different crop, even within the same field, there he now has to take Chumas and Maastros as well, because now what he's doing is he is paying off it. He's paying off his debt using other crops, and there he's not allowed to use tevil of any form to pay off his debt. He has to pay him off in Matukan, and yeah, even if it's just to Vula Lamastros, he's not allowed to pay off his debt like that. Whereas, so just to restate this Mishnah, there are three different levels of chiyuv. One, if he is a sharecropper and the grain is all in the granary, when he doesn't have to do anything, all he has to do is, like, let's say it's a 50-50, he just draws a line down the middle of the granary, separates out his own stuff and walks off with it, and he just leaves the other stuff for the owner. So that's mea achuz. But when he's got a fixed amount to pay, as the chocher, in the same situation, then effectively he's separating off the owner's portion before, not his own. I think that's the way to look at it. Is that now he's got to say, okay, we've got to separate out 50 se'ah, let's say, of produce, and now this is going to go to the owner. So once he's separating that out, and he can't, it's not like he can take his portion and walk off with it. He has to measure out the Baal Habayis's portion, and once he's doing that, he's got to take truma first. Okay, and Rabbi Yehuda says, but that's only that leniency of only taking truma and not taking the maastros as well is only in place if you're paying the owner from the crop of that field. But if you're paying him off using other crops or that aren't from this field or of a different min, then you're basically paying off a debt using those crops, and that has to be completely matukan. He has to take masters as well.
Okay.
All right. Mishnah base. Hachocher sadeh min anochri. Now, what happens if he is renting a field from a goy? So a goy has purchased a field in Eretz Yisrael, and now a Jew wants to come and farm this field for a rental, not as a sharecropper. Okay. Ma'aser v'nosen lo. So in order to pay him his due, he has to take masters first before he pays the goy. Now, why on earth would he have to do that when he doesn't have to do that for a Jew? So the reason given is that the Chachamim wanted to penalize him. They wanted to create a market condition where there would be a disincentive from renting a field from a goy. Why? Because they wanted the goy to say, I can't rent out my field. I can't find any Jews who want to do this, because they'd all rather go and rent fields from Jews because they get a bigger portion of the crop like this. And the guy doesn't realize why, but he's just not finding anyone to rent his field, and he says, "Oh, forget it. Let me just sell it." Okay, so in order to create this disincentive. And the reason for non-Jews to sell the land back to Jews, they created this disincentive making it that you have to take masters before you pay the goy, which leaves less for you to take home. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Afa makabel stei avosav min anochri ma'aser v'nosen lo. He says even if this was his parents' field, so let's say his father sold the field to a goy, and now he wants to come and work on it because it's his old field and he just feels a kinship to it. He says even in that case, he says he has to take maaser before paying the goy. Now that sounds like he's disagreeing with the Tanakama, who says no, there's actually a heter for the guy whose ancestral field this is, and he wants to retain a connection to it, so he doesn't have to be maaser before he gives it to the guy. And I think is that the halacha? I'm just looking here.
I don't see where it says what the halacha is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't he doesn't paskin the halacha over here, but I think there's a machlokes over here between Tanakama and Rabbi Yehuda about the guy who's renting back his ancestral field from the guy who purchased it. Okay, let's do Chazara.
Yeah, is high. Base high. That's not
Base
Chazar.
hay. Base hay.
High is something else. That's something about, must be early in the morning. All right. Reb Meir says, if that which is usually measured in large quantities was measured in small quantities, the small quantity comes under the rule of the large quantity. If that which is usually measured in small quantities is measured in large, the large quantity comes under the rule of the small quantity. Which is of a large quantity? For dry, 3 cobs, and for moist, 1 dinner. Reb Yossi says baskets of figs, baskets of grapes, and hampers of vegetables, so long as they are sold in lots, are exempt. One may give the poor Demai to eat and the Askana Demai to eat. Rav Gamil says to give this workmen Demai to eat, and wardens of charity, Beit Shammai says they should give the tithe to those who do not tithe, and the untithe to those who tithe. Thus everyone will eat tithe food. But the Chachamim say they collect without question and distribute without question, and whoever wishes to tithe, tithes. If one wishes to cut off leaves of vegetables in order to lighten his burden, he may not throw them away before tithing. If one buys vegetables in the market and decides to return them, he may not return them before tithing, for it is only lacked counting. If it was buying and saw another better batch, he may return it because he had not yet drawn it. So he hasn't drawn, he hadn't taken possession of it yet. He hadn't made a kinyan on it.
Yes, that's exactly it. He hadn't made the kinyan yet, and therefore he doesn't have to tithe it before he returns it.
Okay.
Okay. Brachas Chesalef.
These are the points between Beit Shammai and Beit Hillel concerning meals. Beit Shammai says one recites the blessing over the day and afterwards the blessing over the wine. Beit Hillel says one blesses over the wine and afterwards over the day. Beit Shammai says they wash their hands and afterwards mix the cup of wine, and Beit Hillel says they mix the cup and then wash the hands. And Beit Shammai says one wipes his hands with a napkin and places it on the table, and Beit Hillel says on the cushion. So here we have in the first.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What did I say on the cushion?
You speak first. I was gonna say something, but you go ahead first.
I was going to say that in Aleph, that's what we talked about yesterday. Because the bracha that you make it, the bracha on the wine at night is for one, and the bracha on for the day is something else. So now
this Mishnah Aleph is only talking about nighttime.
No, what I'm saying is I was asking you about the Shalosh Yudish yesterday, and it wouldn't make
Yes.
sense to make it because we already did the two that one takes care of the day and one takes care of the Shabbos. So it wouldn't make any sense to do it again. It's just a paper guffin. That makes sense, right? I'm sorry.
Correct. Okay, no worries. And just to refresh about the machlokas between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, the Mishnah's Beis and Gimel are both talking about dinim in excuse me. They're both talking about dinim in Tuma and Tara, and whether or not you can make a. Remember, we had a kli that was tamei on the outside. If you're allowed to use that for kiddush or not, and so there, and whether or not you're allowed to eat on a table, that's a sheni latuma.
Right.
So those were the dinim that they were, and why they made a distinction between the different halachas. Okay, without diving back into the depths of the reasoning, just that's the reminder that those are your that's the fundamental difference between them is in dinim of Tuma and Tara. Okay, Nida Gimel base.
If a woman expels a red-colored object resembling a rind, a hair, a dirt, or midges, let her put it in water. If it dissolves, she is tamei, and if not, she is tahor. If a woman aborts something resembling fish, locusts, abominable creatures, or crawling creatures, if there is blood with them, she is tamei, and if not, she is tahor. If a woman aborts something resembling a type of domesticated animal, wild animal, or fowl, whether of a non-kosher or kosher species, if it is a male, she observes the period of Tuma and Tahara for a male. If it is female, she observes the period of Tuma and Tahara for a female. And if the gender is not known, she observes the period of Tuma and Tahara for a male and for a female. These are the words of Reb Meir. But the Chachamim say anything that does not have something of a human form is not deemed a child. If a woman aborts an embryo full of water, full of blood, or full of multicolored matter, she does not need to be concerned that it is a child. But if the embryo was developed, she must observe the periods of Tumah and Tahara of a male and female. If a woman aborts a sandal or an afterbirth, she must observe the periods of Tumah and Tahara for a male and a female. And if there is an afterbirth in a house, the house is Tameh. Not that the afterbirth itself is a child, rather it is presumed that there is no afterbirth without a child. Reb Shimon says the child disintegrated before it emerged. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Kelim Tesvav.
Okay. Regarding marking grapeskins that were made in conditions of Tahara and Tameim, walked on them, and afterward beverages emerged from them, they are tahor, for they were originally made in conditions of tahara. Regarding a spindle that swallowed its hook, and an ox goad that swallowed its nail, or a brick that swallowed a ring, they are tahor. If they enter a tent containing a corpse, they become tameh. If a zav moves them, they become tameh. If they fell into the airspace of a tahor oven, they render it tameh. If a loaf of truma touched them, it is tahor. Regarding a sedra that is placed over the mouth of an oven, surrounded by a sealed cover, if a crack developed between the oven and the sedra, its measure is the width of the mouth of an ox goad that cannot be inserted. The Yehuda says if it can enter. If the sedra developed a crack, its measure is the width of the mouth of an ox goad that can enter. And Yehuda says even if it cannot enter. If the crack is that the sedra was rounded, we do not view it as being straight. Rather, its measure is the width of an ox goad that can enter. An oven whose eye developed a crack, its measure is the full size of a spindle that can enter and exit while it lit on fire. Reb Yehuda said, which is not lit on fire. If it developed a hole at its side, its measure is the full size of a spindle that can enter and exit unlit. Reb Yehuda says, lit on fire. And Reb Shimon says that the hole is in the middle, then only if it can enter. If it is at the side, then even it cannot enter. And similarly, Reb Shimon would say, regarding the stopper of a barrel that developed a hole, its measure is the width of the second node of a stalk of oats. If the middle, it cannot enter in the side, even if it cannot enter. And similarly, Reb Shimon would say regarding a large cast that developed holes, your measure is the size of the second node of a reed. In the middle, if it can enter, and the side, if it cannot enter. When are these things said? When the containers were made for wine. But if they were made for other beverages, even if they have a hole of the most minute size, they are tameh. When are these things said? When the holes were not made by the hands of man. But if they were made by the hands of man, even if the hole is of the most minute size, the container is tameh. When they developed holes, utensils that are intended for food, their measure is with olives. And utensils that are intended for beverages, their measure is with beverages. A small utensil that is intended for both, we apply it to its more stringent measure in regard to a sealed cover, with a large hole enough to be let in a beverage. Okay. All right, that's that.
Okay. Yeah. Baba Basra. That's fine.
Okay. Okay. Bayside. One who signs over his property to his sons must write from today and after death. These are the words of Reb Yehuda. Reb Yoshi says he needs not. If one signs over his possessions to his son to take effect after his death, the father cannot sell them because they are signed over to the son, and the son cannot sell them because they are in possession of the father. If the father went out and sold them, they are sold until his death. If the son went out and sold them, the buyer has no share in them until the father dies. The father may detach produce and give it to eat whomever he wishes, and what produce he leaves over, detached from the field, belongs to the heirs. When he leaves older and younger ones, the older ones are not supported at the expense of the younger ones, nor the younger ones fed at the expense of the older ones. Rather, they divide equally. If the older ones marry, the younger ones may marry. If the younger ones said, "We will marry just as you married," we do not listen to them. Rather, whatever their father gave them, he gave. If he leaves older and younger daughters, the older ones are not supported at the expense of the younger ones, nor are the young ones fed at the expense of the older ones. Rather, they divide equally. If the older ones marry, the younger ones may marry. If the younger ones said, "We will marry just as you married," we do not listen to them. This is the stringency of daughters over sons, that the daughters are fed at the expense of the sons, but are not fed at the expense of the daughters. If he left sons, daughters, and a tumtum, when there is much property, the males can relegate him to the females. If there is a little property, the females can
Relegate.
relegate to the males. One who says, "If my wife bears a male child, let him take 100 zuzim." If she bore a male, he takes 100 zuzim.
Hold on. So I think you jumped.
No, that's what I have right here. It says the females can.
You're in Mishna Aleph?
No, I skipped Aleph? Yes. I wanted to see if you were paying attention. All right.
Great.
Well,
Okay. I passed the test.
thank you. One who died and left sons and daughters when there is much property, the sons inherit it and the daughters are supported. When there is a little property, the daughters are supported and the sons must go begging. Adman says, "Because I am a male, I lose." And Ram Gamil says, "I approve of Adman's view."
Right. So that's the end of our three. Just to clarify over here that the sons have a Yerusha, but the daughters get to be supported. So if there's a small Yerusha, the daughters have the first dibs because the sons can go begging from door to door, and we don't want daughters begging door to door. So Admon's opinion over here is like that's not fair. Men are typically advantaged more than women. Why should in this situation women be advantaged? But nonetheless, even though Rabbi Gamliel says he likes Admon's view, nonetheless the halacha does not follow them. Okay, Yoma Hey Gimel.
He took the blood from the one who was stirring it. He entered the place he had previously entered, stood in the place he had stood, and sprinkled it from 1 time upward and 7 times downward. But he did not aim in sprinkling either above or below, rather like one who whips. And this is how he would count: 1, 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, 1 plus 3, 1 plus 4, 1 plus 5, 1 plus 6, 1 plus 7. Then he exited and put the vessel on the golden stand which was in the holy. They brought him the he-goat. He slaughtered it and received its blood in a basin. He entered the place he had previously entered, stood in the place where he stood, and sprinkled from it 1 time upward and 7 times downward. But he did not aim in sprinkling either above or below, rather like one who whips. And this is how he would count: 1, 1 plus 1, 1 plus 2, etc. He exited and put the vessel on the second stand, which was in the holy. Rabbi Yehuda says there was only one stand there. He took the ox's blood and put it down, and put down the he-goat's blood. He sprinkled from it the curtain facing the ark. From the outside went upward and 7 downward, but he did not aim. If this is how we would count, and this is how we would count, etc. He took the he-goat's blood and put down the ox's blood, and he sprinkled from it at the curtain facing the ark. From the outside went upward and 7 downward. He emptied the ox's blood into the he-goat's blood, and he poured the full vessel into the empty vessel. And he shall go out to the altar, which is before Hashem. This refers to the gold-plated altar in the holy. He started to downward. Where did he start? From the northwest corner to the northeast. No, from the northeast corner to the northwest corner, to the southwest corner to the southeast corner. And at the place from which he started to daven on the outer altar for a regular sin sacrifice, there he would finish on the inner altar. Rabbi Eliezer said he remained in his place and dabbed the blood, and on all of them he applied the blood from the bottom to the top, except for this one that was in the front of him, upon which he applied the blood from the top to the bottom.
Okay.
Okay.
Siamnu.
Thank you. Have a
Thank
great
you very
day.
much.
I will see you.
You too. Have a wonderful day.
See
See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye.